Stellantis and Jeep are in a real world of hurt. Yes, since back in November, they actually saw a new CEO take over charge, and they want to turn around the sales of what we're looking at, some of these small, mid-size SUVs, and there's big plans to expand and definitely make the brand the go-to brand for a lot of buyers. But with vehicles like the Compass right here, not a particularly great vehicle. They haven't been selling like hotcakes. They're not typically flying off the shelves, and a lot of people are looking for these. As a matter of fact, I can't remember even the last time I saw one, but I have showed you in previous videos the cost of some of these vehicles, and at $35,000, $40,000 and beyond, for Canadian funds that is, it doesn't seem like the go-to vehicle, especially when you can get CR-V Hondas and RAV4s. Now Mazda's got some great vehicles. These vehicles are not selling. I mean, there's just some people that want a small SUV like this that just fits the bill. They don't have a ton of money to spend, but they wanted to get into something with the branding, and this might represent that price tag. Well, let's take a look here. Compass North 4x4, and we have a price tag of $41,590. But there's another one right over here. See, it's a little bit more dressed up, and this one here is a Compass Altitude 4x4. This one is listed at $47,260. Wow, 50 grand plus extras plus taxes. You're out the door $55,000, $60,000 for this. No wonder people aren't buying. But it's not just the Compasses like these that aren't selling. I mean, clearly Ram, Jeep, Chrysler, Stellantis has elected to basically stop production and stop sales of this vehicle right here. And we're talking about, this is the Cherokee. Not a lot of people are buying the Cherokee these days just because they haven't been that popular and the margins aren't that great on them. They're hoping to utilize the Grand Cherokee for maximum sales, as they can plump up a lot more features, options, and increase the prices, which naturally affects their bottom line, more money. And vehicles like the Renegade like this were never a big hit either, and the quality definitely isn't exactly what Jeep Chrysler was hoping for, because this is essentially a glorified Fiat, and Fiats are fix it again Tony. But since November, the new CEO, Filosa, actually was brought up because he was actually able to turn around South American profits and get the brand back on track. But the fact remains is Jeep, Chrysler, Ram, Stellantis is trying to build up and rebrand a lot of these bigger to mid-size SUVs to expand on the market. They also want to localize some of the sales and the productions so that they can save some costs in the bottom line. That's the intent. That's one of the big items. And one of the expansion items is the Wagoneer S that they're talking about, and the Recon, which are intended to be full electric EV vehicles, but they've said they're going to tread lightly there, and they'd like to even expand on those models and bring them as internal combustion vehicles as further enhancement to the overall arsenal and vehicles that might be available to the customer. But it's this very brand right here is the brand that everybody knows and loves. Now there's lots of these on a car lot, and there's no shortage, but there's no shortage because of the sheer pricing. I mean, when we look at some of these, you know, the Monroney sticker on a lot of these here, vehicles like this, even with a rag top, the bare bones with the highway rubber on it, 2 doors as well as just a rag top, this vehicle is still going to cost you in that $50,000 range. Then you step up into vehicles like the Sahara with the painted body and the 4 doors, that's going to cost you in that $70,000 to $80,000. And would you believe it, even some of these Wranglers with the, you know, the beautiful touches, still a basic looking vehicle, highway tires, no running boards on these vehicles, no tint, and even just steel wheels. Means even for a basic bare bones stripped out version like we're looking at here, the 4-door plastic fenders and no fancy paintwork is still going to cost you in that $60,000 to $70,000 range by the time you take it out the door. So it's the out the door price that really kicks you in the rump with a lot of these vehicles too. And that's a pretty looking unit. That's a 4xe, all dressed up to the nines, all dressed up and really no place to go because it's not going anywhere. I mean, right here we see the sticker in here, the Monroney, and what's it telling us? Well, pretty good options list right here, as we can see, but $85,655, $86,000 for this unit. $86,000. Sure, it's a hybrid, sure you get that extra spare tire, but my goodness, that's big money. So what's Jeep going to do differently from here on? And as you can see, Jeep is literally being rebranded as a more premium brand, specifically when you're talking Wagoneer and the upscale versions like that, the larger SUVs. But even vehicles like these, we're looking at the Grand Cherokees, are now going to be a target for an opportunity to make even more money. And yes, this new CEO is definitely got it focused in the sights to make a lot more money, expand the brand across North America as well as Europe, and US and Canada are some of their biggest markets, and that's where they really want to focus, bring more sales, and maybe even to expand the lineup. But none of that's the real issue for customers, and clearly Jeep, Ram, Stellantis is not listening. $75,000. Yeah, and this is a limited 4x4, but that is limiting, all right, financially for the buyer. And I'm a believer, when you look at vehicles like this, that every seat has a butt designed for it. Yes, in other words, every vehicle can sell, and I think we like it that way. Nobody wants to see these brands decimated. We like to see these brands thrive, but not at the expense of the buyer. And that's the problem right now with what's going on. Our prices are the key indicator. There's that X factor that we all speak of. Yeah, Grand Cherokee is a very popular vehicle, even with some of the quality control issues, transmission troubles, the TIPM issues that we've heard and experienced. But it's not really about that, because every vehicle sort of has its Achilles, if you will. But the problem is not that it's, you know, I mean, it is dressed very nice. It's got painted handles. You've got alloy wheels that all polished and shined up real nice. Great badging and lots of great details like this. So it's really not about that. Even with great designs, it's a very contemporary looking vehicle. The new Grand Cherokee is a good looking rig, but it's not really about that. It's just the fact that people don't have the money. Cost of living crisis. People don't have a place to live half the time right now, and people just worrying about feeding the family and the kids and themselves. But they don't have that money, or not enough money, to dig in and then buy themselves an $80,000 SUV like this one. These Grand Cherokees have grown from what they used to be in around that $25,000, $30,000 to where they're at today, and people are paying $80,000 plus for one of these vehicles, and that's with the V6. And over here, look, more Jeeps. We have Jeeps, Grand Cherokees. We have more Grand Cherokees, Durangos, Wranglers, and even more down here. And for me personally, I love the Wrangler. I think it's always been a classic. You know, many years ago, we think of the old CJ and then the YJ. They were classics. They were fun to drive vehicles. They were affordable, they were cheap, utilitarian, and anybody, including a teenager, could go out and buy one during their time in school because they were that affordable. Then I even went out myself and bought a Wrangler, which was actually at the time was a TJ with the 4-liter straight six. It had a manual gearbox, and it was basically looked a lot like this, but it wasn't a Rubicon. Obviously it was just a TJ, but it was very nice. 2 doors, hard top, it had the soft top underneath, and honestly I was in love with that vehicle. I mean, here we have a 24 Wrangler. We know what this is going to cost as a Rubicon. Now we're talking in that $80,000 territory for a Rubicon. Even the 2-door and the 4-door like this is going to cost even more. So those days of it being a good, honest, durable, fun little weekend getaway workhorse has gone away, and it's become now more of a luxury item, to the point where unless you're making, you know, $150,000, $200,000 a year, you can't comfortably get into one of these. And we say that because people buy them anyway. People are making $70,000, $60,000 a year income, but those are the people that are struggling today. And then many of them, back when they bought in 2021, 22, have found themselves underwater with some negative equity. So we're all very excited to hear what Jeep's got in store. Now, obviously, the new CEO who came appointed here in November had some big plans to expand it, make it more interesting. But I'm not hearing a lot of conversation about being a lot more aggressive on the pricing. In fact, the flip side is we're starting to hear that they're actually more focused on further enhancing their earnings and their income, and as well expanding their market share, but nothing really designed around the idea of making it more affordable, expanding it to a different clientele. Remember, Jeep is not a luxury brand, never really has been, but they're definitely curtailing it that way. So the bottom line, what isn't the problem are the great new models and the great themes and technology. Although a lot of people just want a simpler vehicle because they don't want to pay for all that technology and sunroof and leather interior. Not everybody wants those 22-inch wheels. Not everybody wants the polished chrome. Not everybody wants all these extra tech and backup cameras, which unfortunately are legal and they're a requirement. But not everybody wants all that technology you're finding under the skin of a lot of these great technologically advanced vehicles. People want an affordable vehicle, and that's the problem. These CEOs are listening to the bottom line, the dollars. They have to respond to the public shares, they want stock prices, and their primary focus is making money. They're not listening to the customers, and that's why customers are getting very, very upset, because the prices are what we need to see. These $1,500 or $2,000 incentives after they've just pumped up the prices about 30 or 40% over the last 3 years isn't enough. Even that 0.99% isn't enough. People want more. They want more. In other words, they want less of a vehicle and pay a lot less for that vehicle. They just want simpler, and they don't want to overpay. People just don't have the money. And while there's always a niche, a market for vehicles like this, all these highly technical vehicles and all dressed up, the fact remains is not a lot of people have the money for this stuff these days. And quite frankly, just a simpler version with less technology of the same vehicle. And then they need to look internally and just readdress who these vehicles are targeted to, and not necessarily just worrying about stock prices. In my mind, they really need to think about their pricing and get that adjusted accordingly. With all of that said, be sure to check out right there. What we're talking about is GM's issue, of course, with their pickup truck crisis. It's real. They have their own set of issues. So hope to see each and every one in the next one. See you then. Bye-bye.